Hi everyone, I am Laura from Spirable and I am the retail lead here. Welcome to this session on connecting with a digital first population through data-driven creative. Now, before we jump in, a little bit about Spirable. We are a creative performance platform and we partner with brands and agencies globally, helping them to improve the performance of their digital marketing and advertising campaigns, specifically through the lens of the creative. Now, why data-driven creative? Why is it so important? Well, with people spending an increasing amount of their day and their time online, the challenge that brands are universally facing is the fact that it's becoming more and more difficult to capture the attention of their target audience and really to cut through the noise in a digital space that's more and more cluttered by content. So the question, therefore, is how can we do this? How can we create that thumb-stopping content that stops someone scrolling past your ad or your content onto their friends or even a competitor's piece of content? The first thing to acknowledge when answering this question is that creative is a very personal thing. So my response to a piece of creative might not necessarily be the same as yours or your friends. So we need to think about how we can do this. Well, at Spirable, across our client base, we see that by creating ads or by creating content that is more personalized, that's more relevant, and that is even dynamic and reactive to an audience's environment, you can significantly increase the performance of your creative. Now, there is a level of automation that you need to be able to get the speed and the quality of delivery to really implement these data-driven creative strategies at scale, efficiently and effectively. Now, we know it's important, but what's the size of the opportunity, and should a brand, or why should a brand, turn towards data-driven creative as a significant strategy? Well, the biggest names in the industry, Facebook and Google, are telling us that 70% of the campaign performance or the potential optimization potential of your campaign is driven purely by the creative. And Google Media Labs released these figures or statistics around the effects of delivering high versus low quality creative, and really the effects that it can have on the engagement with your content and even the effects on purchase intent. Now, what this means is that media optimization is still just as crucial and important in enabling you to get that competitive advantage and really to help kind of optimize your campaigns. But what this does also signify is that if you want to capitalize on the low-hanging fruit, and if you want to really significantly increase the performance of your campaigns even further, you need to turn towards the creative itself. Now, last year, Google released this data-driven creative maturity framework. And if we walk through this from the left to the right, it starts at the nascent stage. And this is where brands are manually producing their creative, and they're really taking this kind of one-size-fits-all approach to delivering creative to multiple audiences. As you move into the emerging stage, this is where brands start to take a templated approach to the production of their creative. And this enables them to create different versions for testing and learning, and also to implement basic audience segmentation strategies as well. Over in the developed phase, this is where brands start to put data behind the production of their creative. And this opens up strategies like audience-specific messaging, time of the day or day of the week, or contextual messaging, and even location-based targeting and messaging at scale. Right over on the advanced stage, this is where you'll see really scaled, high-frequency, data-driven campaigns with live data going behind the production of the creative assets themselves. But interestingly also, this is where brands will start to take an AI-driven approach to the optimization of their creative, really starting this feedback loop of continuous optimization of content against different audiences. Now, whichever stage of this framework you're currently at, you're going to face challenges moving into the next stage at any point. And the biggest challenge that we see at Spirable really is around how that creative is actually produced in the first place and how it's produced in a way that enables you to open up these more scaled strategies. And of course, the most important thing for marketers and brands is to ensure that the effort you're putting into activating these more advanced strategies isn't outweighing the reward that you're seeing from the uplift in performance or overall ROI of your campaigns. And this is where brands are turning to technology platforms to help solve this particular challenge. Now, there's been a real evolution of creative technology over the last few years. Brands using technology to help them implement data-driven creative or DCO strategies. But there are still some limitations that are being faced. For example, supporting these kind of strategies on social platforms, for example, or even supporting the production of video for video placements. So we need to look at a new way. And this is where creative performance platforms come in. Now, what a creative performance platform enables you to do in terms of data-driven creative is it enables you to take a templated approach to your creative. It enables you to put data behind the production of that creative. It automates the distribution of that creative into the relevant channels or platforms where you're running your campaigns, and then applies automation based on the rules or logic that you've set up. The final element to a creative performance platform, and this is really what helps you move into those latter stages of the framework, is enabling you to take that AI approach to the analysis of your creative, helping you to test and learn at scale, and really make better informed optimizations to your content or your ads themselves. Now, once you've acknowledged that data-driven creative can significantly help you improve performance from the perspective of the creative, there are a couple of ways in which you can expect to benefit from beginning to use and adopt technology such as a creative performance platform. Now, the first way is all around efficiencies. So enabling you to drive greater production efficiencies, workflow efficiencies, and even decrease the time it takes you to set up and implement campaigns, particularly when you're looking at more advanced creative strategies. The second is the direct financial uplift that comes from improving the performance of your campaigns at every stage of the funnel. Now, what you're really looking for in this type of technology when you are seeking to adopt data-driven creative is that full 360 workflow through from creating, automating and scaling, distributing and optimizing your content. Now, let's take a deep dive into what each of these four stages actually looks like and what this new approach might involve as you're adopting data-driven creative strategies at scale. Now, of course, it starts with the creative, and a creative performance platform such as Spirable is a way to enable your creative and even media teams and agencies to easily build dynamic video templates in just a matter of minutes. With Spirable, for example, you can easily drag and drop your brand assets, including images, text, video, animation assets, and really quickly and easily create fully on-brand templates that are completely customizable and therefore in line with your brand guidelines. Now, what this templated approach therefore gives you is a way to efficiently iterate and scale using these modular assets, even creating video assets where you might not even have had video assets before. Now, what this also does, as well as enabling you to scale more efficiently, is to identify any element of that creative as a dynamic or a data-driven element. And this is where you can start to pull in these contextual or live data triggers into your creative strategy. Now, what you'll arrive at is one dynamic template that can be scaled into either a few different versions for test and learn, or even a few hundred or thousand live data-driven creatives or ads. As you can see in this example, your creative might be adapted based on the location of the audience, the interests of the audience, or even those kind of environmental factors surrounding them, such as weather. Now, once you have obviously built that template and you've looked at the different data triggers that are most relevant to your audiences, you can, of course, start to enrich that with the data triggers that I just mentioned. Now, this goes right through from tailoring your ads to your different audiences based on their interest, demographic, etc., and then further enriching it with those contextual or live data triggers. With a platform like Spirable, for example, you can even close the loop and start to bring in your CRM data to deliver that one-to-one personalized video content via email, chatbot, or messenger, for example. Now, once you've put this data behind the production of your creative assets, it's of course about distributing that content into the relevant channels or platforms. And as I mentioned before, this is exactly what a creative performance platform will enable you to do. And the automation at this stage includes automating the trafficking of those ads into channels across social, programmatic, and even, as I mentioned, email or messenger channels. Now, of course, once those ads are in your campaign, any automation, triggering on or off of ads, for example, will all be done through this platform so that it's a hands-off process for you and your in-house teams or agencies. Now, as I mentioned before, another really key element of data-driven creative as a strategy is, of course, focusing on optimization. Now, with a platform such as Spirable, AI-driven creative analysis will enable you to understand not just which creative is the winning creative, but more importantly, enable you to isolate different elements of your creative, put that against your media results, and really start to understand the why behind the performance of your creative within your campaigns. And this will ultimately enable you to gain even more insight than you could access before, but also help you to make those better informed optimizations, not just after a campaign, but potentially leveraging those predicted attention curves before you even start spending your media budget on those creatives. So that's a bit of a look at why data-driven creative is important, recapping the challenge that brands are universally facing when it comes to capturing the attention of their audiences, and also a bit of a deep dive into the process and the approach taken to your creative and media when adopting a creative performance platform. Now, I'm going to walk you through a couple of examples of data-driven creative in action and how two retailers have leveraged the Spirable platform to implement some really exciting strategies. Now, the first is an example from Aldi in the UK. And as you can see, this campaign ran around this time last year. And this is all around promoting when someone's local store is quietest and therefore safest to shop. Now, with Spirable, Aldi were able to quickly react to the situation last spring, and they leveraged the platform to deliver thousands of localized assets around almost 900 stores. And they used the platform to update these assets with the quiet times per store. Now, the key business challenge here was really to help even out the footfall curve in stores to not just keep customers, but also their staff safe. And the exciting thing here is that by calling out the location and the quiet times per store, we were able to prove that we could have an effect on the footfall across these stores, as well as on the campaign side, proving really, really positive engagement metrics with the campaign itself. Now, Boots UK, on the other hand, reacted to a different business challenge at the end of last year. And for retailers in particular, this challenge is all around the reactivity and responsiveness that's required around busy sales and promotions times. Now, the challenge, as I mentioned, wasn't only creating the scale of assets needed for all of these different offers, but really it was about minimizing the downtime between these creative changes. And over the course of the campaign, they leveraged Spirable to make over 150 changes to the creative, including product images, roundels, prices, discount prices, and as you can see, this went across both static image and video assets. Now, between the client and the agency, thanks to leveraging Spirable, they were able to minimize the time between these creative swaps down to as little as 30 minutes. Now, there are a number of use cases and a number of situations and parts of the marketing funnel in which brands are turning to data-driven creative as a strategy to move along that data-driven creative maturity framework, and also to capitalize on that 70% of campaign optimization potential that lies in the creative itself. Now, as you can see, these use cases go right through from testing and learning a few different versions per audience and using things like creative AI to understand why a particular creative is resonating the most, through to hyperlocalization, which is what we saw Aldi leveraging the platform for, right through to these really scaled, live, data-driven campaigns, pulling in things like sports scores or even leveraging a brand's own product or price feed to create those ads at scale. And as I mentioned previously, with Spirable, you can really close the loop and involve personalized creative in that post-purchase part of the journey as well, by delivering this one-to-one personalized video by email or even Messenger or chatbot as a channel. Now, multiple use cases and multiple ways in which you might leverage a creative performance platform and really adopt data-driven creative. But the most important thing, the thing that I'd like to leave you with today, is really considering data-driven creative and the adoption of it as a journey. And by finding the right partner, such as Spirable, to help you to arrive at this fully scaled dynamic marketing and this continued optimization of your creative, that there are a whole host of benefits, as we've seen today, and you really can start to solve that challenge and really ensure that your content is cutting through the noise and getting to your consumers in a more effective way. Thank you so much for your time today. If there's anything that you'd like to explore or discuss from the presentation in more detail, please do reach out. But thanks again so much for your time.